Welcome to the Monday lesson, the Vietnam War Part 2. You can see at the top of this slide there, the topics you're going to be learning about today is the draft, which was when the U.S. made young men 18 years old and older register for the draft. And they eventually, I think you'll see in the timeline, about 1969, they actually started the draft, where if your number was called, you had to go sign up. And you guys are going to do a similar activity related to, you know, if there was a draft today, which there is not. Got to register for it, young men do, when they reach the age of 18, but there isn't a draft. But to see, with your birthday, would you be drafted? And then there was the protest where there was a lot of disagreement about whether we should or should not be in Vietnam. And as the casualties, dead and wounded mounted, and the war started to spread into Cambodia, it became more intense protests. And then the end of the war, where we pulled out in 1973 and communist, North Vietnam won in 1975. So this is the interesting part here. I want to point out to you the picture on this slide. And it is true, the caption there that said that protest against the war in 1969 in Washington, D.C., and you can tell it's in D.C. because look at the Capitol building in the background. My second grade class was scheduled to go on a field trip to the zoo, and we couldn't go because of this protest. And I don't ever remember them scheduling it again. But anyway, so your learning targets where you're going to explain how public opinion towards the war changed. It's the main thing you're aiming for. And here's that timeline where you see, like we talked about on Friday, the French surrendered, then we started to get involved. Then in 1969, the draft begins, and you're going to be learning about the draft today. Then we pulled out in 73, and the war was over with the North Vietnamese, the communist side, winning in 1975. Now, the interesting thing I like about this map, we've seen another map, maybe not the same exact version, but similar, is it has this little inset part here that shows you where Vietnam was in relationship to the United States. So you have Alaska up there, the continental United States there, Hawaii would be right about where the US is, and then there's Vietnam. But you also look at this other part of the map, and it shows you North Vietnam, Communist China up there, and Communist Soviet Union back towards the east. So it's not like the domino theory, other countries fall into communism is all made up. It was happening. So your first activity on slide 6, where you're going to go to this website and do, like I told you, that activity like if there was a draft today, would your number be called? It's kind of fun just to see. And then this video clip about the draft during the Vietnam War. Again, look at the questions before you go to the video. It's on slide 7. Then on slide 8, you listen to this protest song by Edwin Starr. He was not the first person they wanted to record this song, but he did a very good job. It became very popular back then and since then. So look at the questions and then listen to the song. You can probably have it play captions if you need it to. Then this activity about when South Vietnam in 1975 was falling to the communists. This is from the capital of Saigon. And this, if I'm not mistaken, that's the U.S. Embassy. Yes, it says right there, the U.S. Embassy. And civilians, Vietnamese civilians that were afraid of getting caught by the communists who would pick on them because they sided with the South Vietnam, they were getting helicopters and going to U.S. aircraft carriers out in the water so they could get away. I do remember in 1975 being in high school, and all of a sudden there was 2 young men, Vietnamese young men, that came into my class. Well, I forget what class it was. It might have been French because they spoke French in Vietnam. V and Vin Nguyen. And they had been some of the people that got out that way. So it wasn't just made up in the news back then. It really did happen to real people. And then you get to your reflection survey with these interesting pictures of the air cavalry, the protest, and some soldiers getting off the landing craft as they're probably going into duty early on. So again, email any questions you have.